Welcome to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. And now your host, Tim Johnson.
Passion, experience, safety. These are what set Arkell Constructors apart as a premier general contractor. At Arkell Constructors, our goal is to exceed our clients' expectations, whether it's commercial, industrial, or facility maintenance. We have the team and processes in place to provide a solution for you. To us, every project is a resume for our future. Arkell Constructors, the solution for your next building project.
Consumers and property owners with construction projects can have a successful result or regretful experiences that could have been avoided. Before any construction project, verify licensure of the contractor and check references. Scammers will claim to be insured or bonded, so always check first. Download our app, LA Contractor, from the Android or Apple Store. Visit our website, lacontractor.org, or contact the Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors. We're here to help before things go wrong. Hire a licensed contractor. It's the law.
Since 1919, we've designed and constructed hundreds of industrial plants, roads, ships, dams, and executed some of the most complex jobs in the world. In fact, our quality and dependability are legendary. Today, the legend continues as Brown & Root delivers engineering, construction, maintenance, and industrial specialty services throughout the U.S. and the world from our headquarters here in Louisiana. We are Brown & Root.
Promoting workplace safety and family wellness. That's our motto at Gulf Coast Occupational Medicine. The Gulf Coast staff is made up of some of the most knowledgeable and hardest working medical professionals in Louisiana. We care about your safety and your bottom line. With 8 convenient locations in the greater Baton Rouge area, our services include injury management, physical exams, medical surveillance, and substance abuse testing. For more information, visit us on the web at gcombr.info and ride the wave to safety.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Dr. Jim Henderson, President and CEO of the University of Louisiana System, is our guest. Buddy, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Tim. I'm glad to be here.
Just on the radio show last week, had a great conversation, so I'm really looking forward to our discussion today.
Heard it was one of your best shows of the year.
Probably was, and it has everything to do with the guest,
That's
right?
what my wife said anyway.
There you go. Your background has always been interesting to me. Time at the Louisiana Community Technical College System, chancellor of a community and technical college, one of the most innovative and forward-looking community colleges, I believe, in the United States, Bossier Parish Community College. From there on to Northwestern State. That's to right. Be the president of that university, and now to the system. Talk about your journey through higher education, Jim, and what you've learned at each stop along the way.
You know, I've been very fortunate to be put in some situations where we can do some very meaningful work. And, you know, coming from the private sector into government work and eventually into higher education was quite a personal shift, personal growth opportunity for me. But I learned firsthand what the power of education to change lives, to empower individuals, to control their economic futures, to give employers a competitive advantage that's based in talent, to grow communities, to grow the state economy. And it's been a great journey for me. Now, at the system level is a lot of fun policy work. You get involved with politics. But when I got to Bossier Parish Community College, is my first real contact with students. And man, you talk about a great, invigorating, energizing role to play. When you see these students that are bettering themselves day in and day out, continue to my alma mater at Northwestern State. It was difficult to leave that and come back, but I saw such a need for us to shape, number one, the policy environment, but also provide some direction for our universities so that we can become that talent development engine that's so important.
We talked about this on radio last week, but the thing for me that always has marked Dr. Jim Henderson is it's twofold, really. It's your energy and your passion. Yeah. And if you bring some level of intelligence, and I know you well, and
very
I know
modest
that you,
level,
I know,
very
I know
modest level, right?
But you bring that energy and that passion to everything you do. And people have responded to that energy and passion, and you've helped bring direction and focus to organizations like that, and it's been meaningful. How important has that been to you?
You know, I think it's really essential, and people can tell when you're authentically passionate about your work, and it makes a huge difference. You know, in the education world, we have faculty, staff, from top to bottom that are really in this work because they're trying to contribute back. Almost all of them have been beneficiaries of an education system. That, of course, in our faculty, most of them have terminal degrees, so they've been in education a long time. But they're really hunger for a vision, and if you can craft a vision that's compelling, and sometimes that vision takes on different meanings to different people, and that's a wonderful thing. Sometimes I can talk about the student as a consumer and talk about the employer as a customer, and that resonates in certain aspects of our business. And others, that rings a little bit hollow, but yet the real meat of that message is still the same. We're bettering people. We're empowering them to control their own futures, and that I think that's what gets people inspired.
We're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show, right? But you know, our common thought is that education at all levels exists primarily, not exclusively, but primarily to prepare individuals to participate in the economy, and I want to dive into that a little bit deeper.
Sure.
But let's give our viewers an overview of the University of Louisiana system. Relatively new system, but critically important to our state and its economy. Tell us about the institutions, the enrollment. Give us the big picture.
Well, the 9 universities that we oversee from the University of Louisiana system serve more than 90,000 students. And we have institutions that some of the nation's leading research institutions, Louisiana Tech, University of Louisiana at Lafayette. Of course, UNO is our urban research institution. I have a great institution in Northeast Louisiana, University of Louisiana at Monroe, really focuses on health sciences. You got Northwestern State University, my alma mater, which occupies the oldest permanently dedicated site to higher education in the state of Louisiana, up there in beautiful Natchitoches. McNeese, the hub of economic growth and development for the state.
For the whole country,
For
really,
the whole
in Lake
country.
Charles,
You look at
really.
the tens of billions of dollars in investments going on there. Nichols down in Thibodaux, down to Bayou. What a beautiful place.
Harvard on the Bayou.
Southeastern's doing some amazing things. And then we have an HBCU in Grambling State University that, you know, founded in 1903, is one of the most valuable brands, national brands in higher education today. And you think about the work that Rick Gallo is doing up there in refocusing, re-energizing and that university. I tell you what, those 9 universities are a real source of strength for us.
And critically important. We'll talk about some of the economic numbers a little bit later as well, but I know how proud you are of this. 8,500 graduates in the spring semester, right? So let me read this because I want to get it right. The University of Louisiana system produced more than 1,500 nurses, nearly 1,400 engineers, more than 1,300 professional educators, 515 accountants, and nearly 400 computer scientists. What does this mean to those students, to our state, Jim? How does that make you feel when you see those young people, and sometimes not so young people, walking across the stage and receiving that degree?
You know, I went to 4 graduation ceremonies this spring in the month of May, and our board members, Al Perkins, who's a local lawyer, really inspired our board to participate in that. Tom Kitchens, one of our board members from New Orleans, sent me an email. He had gone to UNO's graduation and said everybody needs to sit through this kind of ceremony and watch these faces come across. But when you add those numbers in there for these occupations that are in extraordinarily high demand across the state, across the region, if you will, all of those graduates come out with a marketable skill set that's defined by this piece of paper that they hold in their hands, but that piece of paper means something different. It also means that they can think critically, they can solve problems, they can communicate effectively, they're prepared for life, they're prepared for career success, and it also tells you that our institutions are focused on those occupations that are in demand today. High demand, high wage, that contribute to our economic growth. It was really an exhilarating experience to sit through this 8,500 graduates.
You put those young people in a position to change their future, to change the future of their lives, in many cases break a cycle of poverty.
That's right.
Personally, I know how much it means to you. Let's take a break. We come back. I want to talk specifically about your focus on workforce development and preparing those individuals to be successful in what is truly today a global economy.
Absolutely.
We're visiting with Dr. Jim Henderson. He's the president and CEO of the University of Louisiana System. You're watching the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
Spadel's Florist was founded over 30 years ago. From my mom's kitchen, we have grown into one of the largest florists in this area. There's a sense in our community that you stick together, good times or bad. And oil and gas is part of that family. They're my neighbors, they're my customers. They're the person I'm sitting next to at church. If oil and gas is doing well, all of our businesses are doing well. We are Louisiana Oil and Gas.
What if I said that whatever good things you build you? And that in this economy, sweat never loses its value. What if I said that there isn't a challenge in the world too great for a craft professional with the right tools? And that the steps that lead from where you are to where you want to be can only be built by you. Build your future at byf.org.
It might be one of the most efficient, most effective methods of communications we've ever used.
For more than 20 years, the TJC Group has been helping companies assess their training needs and to develop programs that improve the effectiveness and productivity of their teams.
Training doesn't have to be expensive or complicated. Let us put our experience and expertise to work for you.
The TJC Group, facilitating solutions for business and industry.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Dr. Jim Henderson, President and CEO of the University of Louisiana System, my friend, is our guest. Your website says that the University of Louisiana System has a $4 billion direct economic impact annually, that it equates to $12 of impact for every state dollar of investment in the system.
That includes TOPS dollars.
Includes top dollars. And we're going to talk about budgets a little bit more,
Sure.
I think, in the third segment, but critically important. But in terms of its overall impact, we know the impact it has on individuals, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, but overall impact, $4 billion of direct economic impact, $12 of impact for every dollar that the state invests. That's a pretty good deal, isn't it?
You know, to me, it's a no-brainer. What a smart investment it is to invest in our colleges and universities. And it's not just, it's a local impact, it's a statewide impact. You think about the brain power that comes into our communities because of these universities. That doesn't even count the cultural impact that we have. And you look at the performing arts programs that exist in our universities, a lot of them house symphonies, and how much they just add to the richness of life in these communities. But the numbers, those hard numbers, really tell, I think, a very positive, dramatic story about the impact of the University of Louisiana System.
Well, and I don't often, well, I think that we don't pay enough attention to that direct economic impact, and we don't look at that return on investment, and we'll get into that a little bit more as we talk about higher education funding later. But we mentioned this in the first segment, Jim, and this is always something additionally that I've always admired about you, is your focus on workforce development. Now, we mentioned it, right? It's primarily because you mentioned the symphonies and the cultural things that higher education is responsible for. But it exists primarily to prepare these individuals to participate successfully in the economy. And you guys are focused on that in a big way. It's not something that traditionally we've thought about when we think about higher education. Generally the purview of the community and technical college system. But it's really what the four-year institutions are about as well.
Well, you know, it's really the driving force behind our very existence. It's always been about preparing people for life and for career. But we've really put a fine tune on that focus, I think. And there's perfect examples of that. At the northwest corner of the state, a software firm comes in, CSRA, to build a new location right there in the Cyber Research Park next to Bossier Parish Community College. And Louisiana Tech took the lead on that effort, bringing in faculty from Bossier Parish, bringing in faculty from Northwestern State, and create this synergy, if you will, about building a high-tech workforce right there in Bossier City, Louisiana. And you can take that example and multiply it throughout the communities around the state. You look at what McNeese State is doing with Sowella Technical Community College in Lake Charles and building that workforce. And so while it's something that we've always associated with community and technical colleges, and I'm very proud about the work we did, especially in the last decade, in laser focusing that system on workforce and economic development, there's certainly a huge role for our universities to play, and it's an increasing role. As the nature of work changes, the demands from employers are increasing. The college degree is your point of access to self-sustainability. And if you think about the 2.9 million good jobs created nationwide since the end of the last recession, 2.8 million of them went to college graduates. There's not a better testament than that.
Right. We live in a different world, right? Maybe 25 or 30 years ago in Louisiana, you could exit high school with really no additional training. You could go in the oil field, you could go into petrochemical plants, you could go a lot of different places and find employment and access a career. Today, it's really changed. Even those careers that had heretofore been thought of as, well, you just go into that and you can do it, are requiring some industry-based certification, some associate degree, and in many cases, as you point out, a 4-year college degree. One of the things that's really been nice to watch sort of in this space has been the degree to which silos are being broken down. And you mentioned it, Louisiana Tech working with Bossier Parish Community College, Baton Rouge Community College working with LSU and with Southern. How critically important is it that we continue down that road, Jim, so that we are all singularly focused on the mission of improving our economy and creating that workforce? You know,
partnerships are absolutely vital to the success, the health of our system, but more importantly to the success in reaching our mission. And you know, I've got these great friends that run these other systems. Monty Sullivan and I have been tight for a very, very long time. Actually started in a workforce development conversation up in the Monroe area when he was the academic officer at Delta Community College, and I was just coming to LCTCS. And that partnership and friendship has just grown and blossomed since then. But when you take that and you put it into our organizations and you see the level of collaboration, whether it's articulation agreements and the transfer of credits, or when it's sitting at the table together with an employer saying, hey, we're going to craft a solution. And the silo piece is invisible to the employer. All he sees is two partners that are sitting there with a focus on helping him solve his problems. And that's at the individual employer level, that's at the macro regional economy level. I think you're seeing pieces of collaboration. And even when we look at the flagship system with LSU and with our HBCU system at Southern University, and the way that the four systems are working together.
Even K-12 now being
K-12 is part of that, and you bring in the border regions. So we had a conversation yesterday, I thought it was the heads of the 5 families that were talking about how we're going to do things collaboratively to improve the state of Louisiana. I think the silos are disappearing. We're talking less and less, complaining less and less about state and taxpayer dollars, and we're talking about how do we control our own destiny, and more importantly, how do we build a future for the state of Louisiana.
Got about a minute left in this segment. It really is about outcomes, though, right?
For
too long, we've measured activity. You guys are really focused on, in all of those systems now, including K-12, on measuring outcomes. Talk about that.
It's not a fight that's over by a long shot. You know, and it's so easy for us to get this incessant focus on measures of inputs and accountability to process, when we ought to be focused on outcomes, because that's what's measurable, that's what's going to have an impact for us. If we can create a policy environment that frees us up on the process and the bureaucracy side and allows us to focus on outcomes, we'll develop a talent development enterprise that is the envy of the rest of the nation.
Higher education, it looks like, as we tape before the end of this legislative session, may survive in a better state than it has in quite some time. I want to talk about that when we come back from break. We're visiting with Dr. Jim Henderson. He's the president and CEO of the University of Louisiana System. And you're watching the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
For over a quarter century, Kelly's has operated with honesty, integrity, and above all, safety. Kelly's features a fleet of quality equipment operated by dedicated, safety-minded employees skilled in land clearing, above-ground right-of-way maintenance, vegetation control, station yard and manned facility maintenance, above-ground pipeline support, and more. Kelly's Industrial Services, where pipeline right-of-way maintenance gets done right.
Passion, experience, safety. These are what set Arkell Constructors apart as a premier general contractor. At Arkell Constructors, our goal is to exceed our clients' expectations, whether it's commercial, industrial, or facility maintenance. We have the team and processes in place to provide a solution for you. To us, every project is a resume for our future. Arkell Constructors, the solution for your next building project.
Consumers and property owners with construction projects can have a successful result or regretful experiences that could have been avoided. Before any construction project, verify licensure of the contractor and check references. Scammers will claim to be insured or bonded, so always check first. Download our app, LA Contractor, from the Android or Apple Store. Visit our website, lacontractor.org, or contact the Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors. We're here to help before things go wrong. Hire a licensed contractor. It's the law.
What if I said that the American dream is alive and well, and that it exists for anyone willing to build it? That the power of a nation does not reside in its monuments, but in the hearts and minds of those who built them, and that the country's greatest heroes also wear hard hats. In today's America, it's not enough to dream about the future. You have to build it. Build your future at byf.org.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Dr. Jim Henderson, President of the University of Louisiana System, is our guest. I'm going to talk about funding for higher education. There are still critics out there who say that higher education is bloated, it's inefficient, doesn't operate like a business. Now, I know for a fact that you run the largest higher education system in the state, 90,000 students with 15 staffers in your central office, which is pretty amazing to me. But make the case, Jim, that higher education in general and your individual campuses are being as efficient as they can be.
Well, Tim, it's an ongoing work, right? And we want to ensure that we're making the best use of taxpayer resources. You look at the last 8 years, we've reduced 387 programs that were either outdated or duplicative. We've reduced salaries by about $70 million. I think there's a lot of ways that we have become much more efficient. As you said, we're the 19th largest system of higher education in the nation, and we operated with 15 employees. Now, what I look to, though, is what we call unit cost of production. It's a great measure of efficiency in the private sector. For 8 of the last 12 years, we've had the lowest unit cost of production in the entire 16 Southern Region Education Board states. We're $2,400 less per student than Texas, $3,000 less per student than Arkansas, $5,000 less per student than Alabama and Mississippi. I think that's a pretty efficient model. What we're really focused on, like we talked about earlier, is on the outcomes and getting a return on investment that maximizes value for taxpayers, for employers, and most importantly, for students and graduates.
And that is the message, I think, that we need to continue to promote, is that you guys are looking at ways to be more efficient. And I loved the term that you used. You said we've cut programs, right? We've eliminated programs. Too often what we hear is we cut budgets and we take already marginally funded programs and we make them even more mediocre.
Exactly.
Let's eliminate those that don't perform. Let's eliminate those that don't lead to high wage, high demand jobs, and let's focus on our core. You've done that in a big way.
And listen, let's create new ones that look at the future of work. When you look at the nation's first PhD in cyber engineering, an entire cyber engineering program, undergraduate through the graduate level, developed at Louisiana Tech. When you look at some of the work that they're doing at ULL in health science research, and just in the last 2 weeks, I saw some research at ULM where they found a connection between olive oil and the prevention of cancer and Alzheimer's. That's huge work. It leads to new programs and programs that are on the cutting edge to meet the changing needs of the workforce. Always looking at those that are becoming obsolete, always being aligned with the needs of your market, aligned with the needs of employers, and certainly responding to the needs of the regional economy.
If you're not changing, you're dying, right?
Absolutely.
And that's what you're focused on.
Absolutely.
Now, as we mentioned, as we sit here and tape, we're a couple of days before the end of the legislative session, so this is going to air a week later, but
hope we're still here.
It looks like, we've gone through 15 mid-year budget cuts in 9 years. Higher education is always the primary focus of those budget cuts. It looks like for the first time in a long time that higher education may come out of this session in a decent position, at least not getting cut anymore. You've transformed the funding of higher education over the last 10 years from state support-based to tuition-based. That really has flipped. Talk about that, and then talk about the current fiscal situation of higher education in Louisiana.
Sure. You go back 10 years, we were about 70% reliant on state resources, 30% reliant on students. Today, our enterprise, University of Louisiana system, is about 26% reliant on taxpayer dollars. The rest comes from students, and that's including the $90 million a year we get in top support for student tuition. So that's been a shift. It's forced us to become much more consumer focused, much more focused on regional economies. I think that's been healthy. We are falling short, though, when it comes to investments per student. And we talked about the comparison to our competitor states. Long term, we're going to have to figure that out. A lot of that's going to be, we're going to have to become much more self-reliant. But when you think about where we are in this legislative session, and as of today, it's been one of the best legislative sessions for higher education in the last 8 or 9 years. Now, there are still some key decisions that have to be made, and we're looking very with great concern at some of those decisions. We know that the future of the state of Louisiana is dependent on a strong, robust, responsive system of higher education. That means investing in faculty so that we're keeping those high-skilled, talented educators.
Best and the brightest.
They're in such high demand across the country. We want to keep them here in Louisiana so that we're providing the best opportunity for Louisianans so they can contribute to their employers, contribute to their communities, and contribute to their own quality of life.
One of the things I know that's critically important in terms of that state support is this level of deferred maintenance on college campuses
huge,
across the I saw a recent study where some legislators and the governor had been brought through Middleton Library at LSU and the deplorable situation that exists there in terms of its conditions and its furnishings. Give us 30 seconds on the need for those dollars to upgrade your facilities and equipment.
Just at the 9 universities of Louisiana, we have about $350 million in deferred maintenance. And the challenge with deferred maintenance, if you don't address it, as you know from your background, it gets more and more expensive. So we got to find ways to invest in those facilities. And the capital outlay process in Louisiana is probably not as healthy as it could be. It is overstretched, and there's these unlimited demands on very limited resources. But we've got to figure out that deferred maintenance piece. We need facilities that are flexible, that are aligned with 21st century technology needs. Libraries are a perfect example. We don't need the 80,000, 100,000 square foot stacks of books that we've had in the past, but we need smaller, more focused, technology-enhanced learning centers for our students.
15 seconds, your message to the business community on behalf of your system.
Our system, from our faculty to our presidents to our system staff, is 100% focused on meeting your needs. And that means by providing you with the talent that gives you a competitive advantage, by strengthening our regional economies, giving you the research that helps make your products and your work even more efficient, more effective than ever before.
Listen, man, I can't tell you how much I always enjoy my opportunities to visit with you, Jim.
Great pleasure, Tim.
Dr. Jim Henderson, University of Louisiana System. Keep up the good work.
Yes, sir.
That's a wrap, guys. Thanks for joining us. Join us again next week at this very same time for another edition of the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Hey guys, be sure to check out our new LBIS website, www.louisianabusinessandindustryshow.com.